Thank you so much for joining us for this particular conversation. My name is Safin Aching Oma, and welcome to the program as we get to the second part of the interviews that we had lined up for you this morning. Today on Family Check, we want to focus on something that will interest you, especially if you're really passionate about education and going further to achieve your dreams. And today, our focus is about how easy it can get. Yes. You get my words right. How easy it can get to apply for higher education in the US, the process of getting a visa, the process of getting funding for your education, and even choosing the institution or college that will fit your needs, your educational needs. That is what we'll be talking about today, as I have a representation from the US Embassy right here in Nairobi to help us answer most of the questions that I know you and I could be having about this particular process, and something that I know probably at some point you've heard about or maybe not, the Education USA. Today we just want to unpack it and make it as basic as possible for you. This is a conversation for you and I. Why don't you join us as we go all the way answering all the questions you have? So allow me first introduce my guests for the show this morning who will be helping me do this, and I'll start from my far left. I'm hosting Madam Lindsay Miesco. She is the Vice Consul at the Consular Section at the US Embassy right here in Nairobi. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
And then directly next to her there, we have an amazing, amazing lady who is happy now that she's part of this whole journey. She has succeeded to join Duke University. Her name is Celine Murugi. Celine Murugi will be telling us a bit about how her experience has been in the journey to apply for this particular process. Then we have the only gentleman on set looking all sharp and ready to fly out. His name is Brian Nzuki, and he's passionate about engineering. And his passion has taken him all the way to apply for this particular process. But then he will be telling us a bit about himself as well. He has gotten a chance to join Harvard College in Cambridge, and he will be telling us more about that. And then the lovely lady next to me, her name is Faith Biko. She is the education advisor at the Education USA, the go-to person in case you have all those questions about how the process starts all the way to your departure and go to the US. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining me this morning. Yeah, so probably let's begin this conversation by, breaking down a bit what Education USA is all about. What's the story? When did it start? And what was the inspiration to have this particular section at the US Embassy? I'll direct this question to you, Lindsay.
Oh, well, actually, I think Faith is better positioned. She's in charge of Education USA at our embassy.
Right. Okay, thank you for that.
All right, so Education USA started in October 2012 when I joined the embassy. And the reason why the embassy found it useful was that they wanted to have an in-house service where students will come in and ask questions regarding applying to US universities, and most importantly, to have a place where we will also have resources within the embassy that the students would easily access, because we need resources for students who are applying to go study in the US. So we started in October 2012, and it's going to be my 6th year this year. So Education USA at the embassy has been there for 6 years. But Education USA is part of a huge network. We have over 400 offices in 170 countries across the world, and we are funded by the US Department of State.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you for that. And looking at the scope of how this is spread, I'm interested to know, if you bring it down to our country, Kenya, how is the traffic like in terms of the students that have passed through your hands? And this year alone, how many have been able to be part of the process?
That's a very good question.
Yeah.
So we have over 3,000 Kenyan students who are actively studying in the US right now, and that also includes students who are on an internship process. The beauty about studying in the US is that once you are through with studies, you will be allowed to work for at least 12 to 18 months in an area that is specific to what you studied in your undergraduate. So we have, the program is called Optional Practical Training. So we have over 3,000 students, and those who are actively in class and those who are in internship. This year we already have 17 students who are already admitted on full scholarship, And then we have many more students who have been admitted on partial scholarships. We'll begin to study in the US this fall, and that is in August and September this year.
Okay.
Yes.
Faith, for somebody who has never heard about Education USA, they're probably hearing it for the very first time and they're asking, you've talked about being in over 170 countries. In our country, Kenya, where are these centers located, and or online, where can somebody, interact with this particular program?
A very good question. So in Kenya, the main office is at the embassy, and that's where I am most of the times. But we have a concept that we call American Spaces. And so American Spaces are physical spaces where you could go and get resources about Education USA and publications about the US in general. So we have an American space in Nakuru at the Kenya National Library Services. We have another American space in Lamu. We have another American space in Mombasa.
Okay.
So those are 3 places that you can come and find us. And then within Nairobi, at Moi University on the 5th floor, we have another American space where, again, we have resources for Education USA. And when it comes to the internet, where can you find us? We have our website.
Yeah.
You can find our information again on the US Embassy website. And we interact a lot with Kenyans on the US Embassy Facebook page, Twitter, and their Instagram.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you for that. And I did that because I know in the course of this conversation, we will try and answer as many questions as you have, but then you may need more information about Education USA. So there are centers that you can be able to visit for inquiries, as well as, the website that you can be able to interact with and get more information on that. But then to the students, the lucky few who've been selected for this year's lot, tell me a bit about yourselves. I'll start with the lady, Celine. Tell me a bit about yourself, your high school life, and how is it that you came to learn about Education USA?
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm Celine Murugi, joining Duke University this year.
Yeah.
I remember all the way from high school, I had an interest of joining an abroad university one day, and I really wanted to really work hard so that one day I'll have that opportunity to join an international university. So throughout my high school life, I did my best to work hard and get good grades. And during my high school life, I searched for various websites on the internet on the resources which can help me apply abroad. And on my research, it's where I came across Education USA. And I was also lucky enough because I had a friend who had gone through the program and she was able to secure a university abroad. So I talked to her, and through that I was able to apply to Education USA. And so I got in, and that's where my application process began. From. Yeah.
And you'll tell us about that
Yeah, I'll
journey
tell you.
and how the experience was, the downs, the ups
Yeah.
for that. But then, Brian, you also part of this lot. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, so my name is Brian Zuki, and I attended high school in Brother Bisang Catholic Education Center in Ngong. I have lived in Ngong since I was born, basically for 19 years.
Okay.
And that is the only place that I know as home.
Okay.
And I happened to also have attended a single school, which is still Brother Bisang Catholic Education Center, for both my primary and secondary studies.
Okay, so your life was kind of enclosed
Yeah, it was still,
in
yeah, it
one
was,
region.
yeah,
All
actually.
right. Uh-huh.
But actually growing up in that village, I have learnt a lot.
Okay.
But pertaining this dream of looking for a school in the US, honestly speaking, I never had dreams of studying in the US when I joined high school in Form 1. I transitioned to Form 2, Form 3, and Form 4. But I remember when I reached Form 4, that is when, Form 4 Term 2 actually, this is when I first thought that I could look for a school outside Kenya, which is better and has better opportunities for people like who I was.
Okay.
But then coming up with such a decision was very hard because actually lack of mentors around me who might have gone through the process as well, or people who might have transitioned to the same place I was dreaming to go wasn't there.
Okay.
But actually I really am grateful when I learned about Education USA. So I learned about Education USA from a friend.
Okay.
He had cleared high school in our school and he's currently in the University of Nairobi. So he shared to me that link, when the applications are open, that was in January 2017.
Okay.
He shared with me the link for the application. At first, yeah, I was a bit skeptical, I'd say, because I never knew if it was true or it wasn't true. And being in my shoes, actually, you can actually concur with me that when such a thing comes, you have to weigh both sides first before you immerse yourself into
And
it.
in Kenya, you have to look at the deal, and when it is too good, you have to look at it twice
Yeah, actually.
to see how true it is. But then you also tell us about your journey. But Lindsay, just to bring you in on the conversation, we have, a population that thinks it's very hard and unrealistic and expensive to think of studying abroad, let alone the US. What do you think about this particular, line of thought?
Yeah, I can understand how somebody would think that it's almost an impossible goal to study in the United States. But the truth of the matter is there are more than 5,000 accredited universities in the United States, so there's really something for everyone. There is a wide variety of academic and vocational programs in the United States. And Celine and Brian are going to some of the top universities in the U.S.
Yeah.
It's a huge accomplishment. But in order to be granted a visa or to travel to study in the United States, you don't have to get into one of these top universities. There are also plenty of community colleges that offer programs that help students establish the building blocks to get to some of these higher universities, if that's something you're also interested in.
Okay, interesting that you've talked. I was looking at this and I saw, any post-secondary institution that has been accredited, actually anybody can apply to those ones. You just don't have to focus on the top, universities in the US, and that's a good thing. And coming back to you, Faith, many people think the moment such a conversation is held, it's a scholarship to go to the US. And I understand Education USA is not a scholarship program.
That's right.
Yeah, so clarify that for us.
Thank you. I always have people who will come into the office and they tell me, or they'll even come and tell me, we want, or I need a scholarship to go study in the US.
Yeah.
And that's the perception. The US government and the US Embassy doesn't give scholarships for Kenyan students to go study in the US. But what Education USA does is that we guide the students in the application process, both for admission, because a student has to be admitted first before they are awarded a scholarship.
Okay.
And it is a process. So the first thing that the student needs to do is to look for a school that's a good fit. And that's what research entails. So the first step is for the student to do research and ask themselves, which school is a good fit for me? And the second step is to look for the financial aid package. How much can my parents afford to pay? Is it 80% of the total cost, or is it zero? And at whichever spectrum the student is at, they need then now to look for a school that will offer them the financial aid package, what we call a scholarship, that's appropriate to help them achieve the academic dream in the US.
Allow me to cut you short. I'll probe you further on the steps that one ought to take to get through this process.
Okay.
But then the reason I ask that is because I want to know, the target group that is being targeted for this.
Okay.
And is it needy students? Is it students from well-off families? Is it both? Or how do you consider all these aspects of, capability to fund education in the US and even cater for, your living expenses while you're in the US? Because that's also another issue altogether.
We have parents who can pay,
Okay.
and we also have parents who can't pay. And so in 2013, we started the Education USA Scholars Program, which targets the needy but academically talented students. And that's where now Celine and Brian fall into that category of Education USA Scholars Program. And so the Scholars Program is highly competitive. Every year we're looking for 40 top performers in the country in Nairobi, and then we look for 10 in Nakuru County. So these are students who can't pay at all, but when you look at their grades, they have an A- in KCSE, they have an A- in math, and they have an A- in English. And if you look at their report from Form 1 to Form 4, they've been top achievers throughout high school.
All right, so you have to have an A- general
Yes.
or A steady
Yes.
and an A- in English and mathematics.
That's right.
For you to qualify.
That's right.
And if you need a scholarship, you have to come from a very needy family, but you also consider them that can pay for themselves.
Yes.
They are also accommodated in this process.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But now I'd like to make that clarification
All
that
right.
it's for the Scholars Program that we have those requirements.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, let me get to the scholars. these are grades that we are very proud of saying on air. You know, there are some people who got grades that you can't say on air. Let me put you on the spot. Tell me a bit about what is it you scored in high school, and so that we can see, you know, how, like she's putting it, you felt under that umbrella of people who accommodated for this. Brian?
So actually, I scored an A- of 77 points in KCSE. That was back in 2016. But, you know, sometimes when I sit down and look at what kind of gave me that chance, I'd say is like the hard work I had started putting in back in Form 1. Because, you know, a big consideration is put also on your performance in high school, the general performance.
And I want students who are watching this morning to listen to the two of you very carefully, because this is just like a process of what you need to be successful in this process. So you're saying you put in hard work from Form 1 all the way till Form 4?
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
So, you know, when I cleared now KCSE, that is when I learned the importance of the hard work that I put in right when I joined high school in Form 1. Because when Education USA are considering these scholars, they have to pay great attention to the transcript as well. So transcript is just a summary of your grades right from Form 1 to Form 4. They don't particularly rely a lot on KCSE. Though KCSE is a determining factor to like put in the first step, they also consider your transcripts as well.
Okay.
So my transcripts were good, and
They were attractive. They sold you, right?
yeah, we can say this.
Yeah,
on
we can
the
say
apps.
that. Yeah, but do you say anyway? It's very good that you say that, because our system is a bit different. I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but usually we have a lot of out of the blues, A+, A minuses. Somebody has been getting different grades from Form 1 to Form 2 there, and then one day they wake up and they realize, KCSE is around the corner. You wake up, you study hard, and you just get an A-. But for this particular process to secure a place in the US, you have to have a consistent, you know, high performance, something that you can show a pattern of a student who is promising, which is a good thing. I don't know about you, Celine. Tell me a bit about your academic history.
So I got an A- of 79 points in high school. And I'd say it's not only about my performance, because Education USA checks a holistic person, because even as you apply to these abroad universities, they want a holistic person. So I'd say another factor that also helped me get into Education USA and also into Duke University, in addition to my KCSE grades and my transcripts, are also the activities I was involved in while at school, because I was involved in theater. It's something I loved, and that's why it's one of the courses I'm considering doing. I loved theater, and I was part of the drama festivals all the way from Form 1.
Okay.
So I'll say, other than just focusing your attention on education, you've also got to find something that you love, something that your school offers, and pursue that. If you're good at debate, go for that debate. If you're good at acting, go for the theater. If you can sing, go for the music festivals, because these are things that they'll check, and these are the things that they'll consider you, and that will make you stand out from the application. Because you can imagine we are in Kenya only. The whole world is applying to these universities. So what will make you stand out as a student? So you have to look for something you love while still in school and pursue it. It's not a must to engage in everything that the school offers. You don't have to be everywhere, but look for that one or two passions that you have while still in school and pursue those, because those are the things that you're going to list down even as you apply to these schools. Yeah.
One thing I'm getting here is that you can still do well while even engaging in other activities in school. You can still get your A's and still do other things, and it makes you somebody who is all round.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. Lindsay, tell me a bit about why should one consider this? What is it about the higher education system in the US that is so attractive and good and a value add that even we can borrow as Kenya to our systems here?
Yeah, I mean, I think the universities in the United States are attractive to people because, they offer a diverse menu of things that you can study. The students that you'll encounter in U.S. universities are often students who have come from all over the world, so you'll really broaden your horizons in that way too. And in a lot of the universities, I can't speak for all the universities in the U.S. because like I said, there are thousands, but in a lot of the universities, they are very rigorous when it comes to the professors that they have and the academics that they offer. Maybe Faith can talk a little bit more about why it's so attractive.
Okay, and as you do that, you can also tell us, in the process of selecting students, is it allowed for somebody, in case you're working, is that considered somebody who is financially able to fund, or they can fall still under the category that you assist to get scholarships?
Okay, so maybe just to continue with what Lindsay was saying, there are very many fields of study that you can consider. We're thinking about over 600 fields of study. So think about 600 courses that a student can actually consider, across the 5,000 and over universities that are accredited. And then the opportunity for a student to join a university as an undecided student. I mean, they are 18, 19. So right now they might not know what they will enjoy in the next 10, 20 years. So they are allowed to join the university as undecided students.
Okay.
And for the first 2 years, they're allowed to study, Greek mythology to zoology as they try to find out what their specific interests are. Another unique thing about US education is the ability for students to take a double major. So you can take a major in computer engineering and a major in statistics. That's very unique. And after you're through with your studies, you have an opportunity for internship, because every employer is going to ask you, do you have work experience? And they're not asking you for the 3 months.
That's the story of every person looking for a job.
That's right. And so you tell them, yes, I've worked for a year in this US organization, and that puts you ahead. And then when we come now to your question, if somebody is working, are they in a position to afford? We could maybe answer that question depending on how much we're going to pay. So a minimum amount, we will be talking about maybe $50,000 per year. That is what? 60 million in 4 years. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, you can't really afford that.
And then we also have schools that are going to, again, be cheap, because if you're talking about community colleges, your contribution could be maybe $5,000. So how much can you
pay?
And so what the universities do is that they look at how much your family can contribute. It's called the expected family contribution. And they do the math and they see if you can afford to go to their university. But it's not, again, all universities that offer scholarships or financial awards to international students. So again, that's where the student has to check, does this university offer scholarships or financial aid awards to international students? Yes.
I'll stay on you as we get now into the process. And I understand it's a 5-step process.
That's right.
For you to go through it and complete and even just leave to go and study. Talk to us about the very first thing that one needs to do for you to be able to join now the journey to applying for higher education in the US.
A good question. Everybody thinks it's very difficult to go study in the US, but it's just a five steps.
Yeah.
But
probably in the US, and some things in between.
By the time you do with 5, you are in a US university, engaging with students from across the world. So the first step is research. And research is important. And this is a place where I find that most students get a moment to self-discover and become self-aware. Because you're asking the students, who are you as an academician? Most of the students haven't asked themselves this question through the 4 years they were in high school, because they've just been following through with the steps that have been laid ahead of them. But going to study in the US is a process that must be owned by the student. And so the first thing they do is to conduct research. But they must come up with a research criteria and say that for Faith as a student, what is important to me is 1, 2, 3, 4. So it could be, I'm interested in engineering, that's the first important thing. Number 2, I'm interested in conducting research as an undergraduate. So I have that as a number 2 criteria. Number 3, I love good food. And I have that too. Or number 4, I'm interested. That's very important. Number 4, I'm interested in being in a university that has a lot of international students.
Okay.
So who are you as an academician? What's going to make you successful? And other now things that are really important to a student is the class size, student-faculty ratio. Will I be successful in a classroom of 300 students, or do I need to be in a classroom that has only 10 students to one lecturer?
All right. I'll come back to you. Let me, direct this to Celine. As you were making that decision, what was on your priority list? Like Faith is sharing. Was it good food?
She's one of the factors.
All right. Talk to me about what was going on through your mind as you were doing your research process.
The first thing that I checked and why I chose Duke University was the cost, because I knew I couldn't afford. We're paying about 8 million for 1 year. That's 32 million for the 4 years.
Yeah.
So I checked about the kind of aid they'll give to international students, and I saw that if you can't afford the fees there for 8 million in 1 year, they're able to give you good financial aid, and which will last throughout the 4 years. So you can be sure that your fees will be covered. That was the first thing I checked. Then second, I checked the class size, because I saw the student-faculty ratio was 8:1, and this is a place I don't want to be, because I want that close relationship with my fellow students and also with the professor that will be teaching me. So I thought that this was a nice university, because when it comes to the ratio, it's something I can be able to well engage with my professor, because it's not a very big class. And then I also checked the location.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
that's
one of the
important.
things I checked. Yeah, and I saw that North Carolina was a nice place to be, and the weather, because it's on the south part of US, so the weather is quite suitable there, and it's somewhere I'll want to be for the next 4 years.
Okay.
So yeah, those are some of the factors that I checked,
That
and
you
also the
considered.
international students there. Duke has several international students. Actually, there's a Kenyan who I know from there. So yeah,
Awesome. So you already have a friend.
I already have a friend at Duke.
All right. Brian, there was a joke when we were studying about, people who study so hard. Used to say, you're studying so hard, you want to go to Harvard or something. Now you've been, you've been accepted to join the Harvard College. Talk to me about why that. What was it that attracted you about it?
Okay, so apart from what Selena said, something that really caught my eye about Harvard is the kind of opportunities they have. And having a lot of interest in science and research, and having participated in the science fair back in high school and to the metropolitan level, that interest was still left in me. So when I was looking at Harvard's research opportunities they have, that really caught a lot of attention in me. And I said, yes, this is the kind of environment I'd like to invest my time in. This is the kind of environment I'd like to channel my potential into.
Okay.
And Harvard has very good research labs whereby you can do any kind of research that you want, either personal research or research from the faculty.
Okay.
You can also work hand in hand with the professors in their research labs and help them actually in the research that they're doing. So basically one thing that I really considered about now Harvard itself is the research opportunities they have. And also something else is the benefit that comes after that, because they have very, very good internship programs whereby you can immerse yourself into not after or during the course of the study. And these internship opportunities serve to help you practice the skills that you have. And interning at very good companies gives you the skills that you need outside the classroom. So I'd say those two things were really, really, they made me decide on Harvard a lot much, as in addition to what Selena said as well.
Right. Good food also.
Actually, the food.
Okay. and the
really
life
good.
and all that.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know, Lindsay, what you can share with students or people who are interested in this that are watching this morning in terms of making that decision. What other factors do you need to consider? I mean, a place to stay, the cost of living. Just share with us from where you sit. What do you think is important?
Well, it's an extremely personal decision. Like Faith was saying, there are various things that will come into play for each person. As a consular officer, where I come into this process is adjudicating the visas. So I don't know if the two of you have gotten your visas yet, but I might be one of the officers that you see whenever it's time.
Yeah.
And the consular officer at that interview will ask these kinds of questions. Why did you choose this university?
Exactly.
And what the officer really wants to hear is how you made that personal decision. It's a huge life decision. You're moving halfway across the world, away from your family, away from the food that you're familiar with.
Away from a place like Ngong.
Exactly. Exactly.
Away to
Yeah, Harvard might be a little bit different than Gong.
Actually.
So it's really a personal decision. But I mean, what I would like to see is that each student has had that thoughtful process,
All right.
has really had that introspection and tried to get to know themselves and to think not only what will make me happy,
Okay.
but what will put me on the path to success
All right.
in this U.S. university.
All right. You come in mostly at the fourth step, that is helping them to get the student visas.
Yeah.
You'll talk to us about that, but back to the steps. After you've done your research and now you have an opinion on the option that you've decided on, what is the next thing that one needs to do?
Money.
Money is always a problem. Yeah.
You have this amazing opportunity right in front of you.
Yes.
And you can see how your life will be transformed.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you look at how much it's going to cost you, and you look at your parents, they smile back and say,
Yes.
I don't know. Yes, I don't know.
And here you are, don't forget,
Yes.
you've scored an A or an A minus, and here in Kenya, that kind of student has already qualified to be accepted in any local university to, pursue a very attractive course. Yeah, so comparing that cost and this local opportunity, a parent would have a problem.
And that's when you can do help, right?
Yeah, help is there, yeah.
So money becomes a key thing.
Okay.
And at that point, then we start having very honest conversations with the students.
Okay.
How much money can your university give you? How much money are your parents willing to give towards your education? What's your family contribution? And so we're going to have students who are going to say, my parents can't pay anything. And that's okay, and that's valid.
Okay.
And we have students who can say, my parents can pay 10%. Then based on how much parents can pay, then we will look again. Once you conducted your research, are your schools in alignment to your financial need? If the schools are in alignment, then you go to step 3 and apply. If they're not, then you go back to step 1 and look for schools that meet your financial needs.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the step 3. Okay. Still on step 2.
Yes.
You said you can assist the student in, exploring the options of scholarships that are there
That's
for
right.
different universities, but you do not offer the scholarships
That's right.
yourselves as Education USA. That has to be clear.
Yes.
Now on step 3,
Yes.
this is the application now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, talk to us about that.
So step 3 again is influenced by step 2, which is on financial aid, because most of the financial aid awards that are given to students are given on the basis of merit. So a student will tell you, I see US universities are offering need-based scholarships. I'm in need, but I have D.
Yeah.
I have D's at all across.
Okay.
That's not going to work. And as much as they are need-based scholarships, merit has to be there.
Okay.
So in step 3, that's where the application comes in, and this is where the work comes in. The student has to go back to their high school and tell the teachers to write letters of recommendation for them, a minimum of 3 teachers.
Okay.
So their school counselor, not the one for bad behavior,
Oh, okay.
the one for careers,
Oh,
that is the one who writes the letter of recommendation, and then 2 other teachers, subject teachers that you will choose. And at this point, I'd like to speak to the students who are in high school right now. You have a very good opportunity to create very good relationships with your
Exactly.
teachers.
Yeah.
Please do.
You never know where you need them.
Right?
Yeah.
You will need to go back to them and remind them of how you were in their class, and
Yeah.
if you are causing them trouble, they will not be smiling at that moment. But they need to write very honest letters of recommendation telling a US university why they should take you over another student and give you 8 million shillings per year for you to study for 4 years.
Okay.
Other than letters of recommendation, a student will write an essay about who they are. And again, this goes back again and ties in with the first step in research.
The research.
Who are you?
Yeah, yeah.
So in 2014, we had one essay that asked, which person inspires you the most? And many people at that moment were inspired by Nelson Mandela, and they wrote about him. But what they forgot is that they had to tie in how Nelson Mandela has inspired them, and at the end of the essay, show who they were.
Okay.
So it's very important, again, as a student, start asking yourself, who am I? And begin to have that conversation within yourself. So that if somebody asks you, who are you? You can't begin to tell them, oh, I'm in this high school, because that's a description of who you are.
Yeah.
And then
By the way, how do you answer that question? Who are you? Yeah.
it takes us like so many essays to finally get there.
Yes.
The student who wrote the most essays wrote 82 essays about who he was, because it took him 82 compositions
To get to know who he
They were.
I don't know how many times both of you took to write. Was it the same about who you are, the essays you wrote? Or there was a different thing about what you were supposed to write as essays?
Generally speaking, the essays are quite different,
Oh, okay.
but they all boil down to who you really are.
Okay.
Because when you're writing an essay about a particular school, it is very wise to put yourself into the essay in such a way that anybody who is going to read that essay millions of miles away, he or she is able to picture who you really are. So you really have to give a brief, not a brief description, but whenever somebody reads that, he's able to know, yes, so this is Brian, and I'd say Brian behaves in a certain way. Brian has these traits. Brian has this as his strongholds and this. So generally speaking, those essays could be different, but on the wiser side, it's good if you channel them down to who you really are and bring your voice in them. Yeah.
Are there any examinations that you also went through, Celine?
Yeah,
And is it a tense moment, like the kind of exams that we do in high school?
I'll say it's not really tense if you're prepared for it, because we took several months to prepare for these exams.
Okay.
There are SAT exams. There are usually two categories of SAT. There's the SAT 1 and the SAT 2. So we took about 8 months to prepare for these exams, because they can be quite hectic if you don't have enough preparations, because they're quite different from what you do in Kenya. In Kenya, it's mostly about what you have learned in your books and all, but for the SATs, it's more of a critical thinking. You have
Think outside the box.
a critical thinking test. So it's something that you had to train your mind how to think fast and to think critically. Yeah, so we had to take enough time to prepare for these examinations, because you need to know how to think critically.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Oh,
And also about the exams, something I'd add is, being in a Kenyan system, maybe if somebody is doing exams, being in a Kenyan system, the math exam is a bit friendly to us, because I believe the maths we do here in Kenya, it's kind of advanced as compared to what our colleagues do in the US. So being a Kenyan student and speaking from that perspective, I'd say maths was kind of easy. But now when it comes to English, you have to do a lot of practice in it. Because back in the US, English is their first language.
Yeah.
And it has always been the language of instruction since they attended school.
all right.
And to set a standardized exam using English, you have to kind of use a different level of English than what is normally spoken by people. And now when that level of English is translated here to Kenya, it could become challenging to most students. And looking at the fact that maybe in most high schools, speaking English is not a culture that is highly valued.
Yeah.
So when it comes
You
to
have
English,
to be disciplined to speak English
Yeah.
and be forced to do it. But thank you for that. I don't know if there are any other things that you'd like to mention concerning the application process, so that we can get to the visas.
There are 3 things that I'll talk about. We are not looking at you in terms of exams, because a human being and a student is more than tests. So we're looking at leadership abilities. Has this student ever been in any form of leadership? And we're not talking about active leadership in terms of being a president in school. We have had people who are orphans, they were firstborns, and they were responsible of raising, yes, their siblings. That's leadership right there.
True.
Yes. And then activities. What did you do in high school? If you went to high school and all you did was study, you didn't participate in anything outside class, then you're not a good student for the Education USA Scholars Program. You have to have utilized the resources that were available in your high school. And then number 3 is community service. If this student has never benefited any other human being other than themselves, then
You've never engaged in a cleanup process or planting of trees or
yes.
Wow.
Then that puts some questions in us. Why haven't you done something that has made your community, either in school or outside school, a better place?
Right.
So if you're thinking about studying in the US, then begin to think about community service. And somebody has something to give. So even think about students that you can teach, math in class 1 and class 2. So all those things come into play in the application process. And finally, the student has to fill in an online application and submit before the deadlines. And deadlines for the US are real. If they're past deadline, then they can't apply. So for Kenyan students, we advise them to apply earlier than the deadline.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. We'll come back to talking about the deadlines. The lot for this year was January 28th, 2018? Or
The application deadline? Yes.
that was the date?
That was the deadline, yes.
Okay. You'll tell us about the next one. For them that are interested, they should look out for. But then we are at the visas. This is the 4th stage now. The student has already made an option. They've, organized whatever arrangements that they have to fund whatever option they've decided. They've gone ahead to apply and even fill in the form. So what next?
So the next step of the process is that they would get what we call an I-20 form, and that's issued by the university that has accepted them. And that basically puts them in our student and exchange visitor database so that we can see that they have been accepted to this school, and they will be attending. And then you make your application online. Our website is ke.usembassy.gov. You can click on visa there, and the steps are laid out very clearly.
Right.
And then you come to your interview, which is, I know, can be nerve-wracking.
Yes, that's the hard part. That's why you asked a lot of questions about the why you applied for this opportunity, what you're going to do there. Okay.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be nerve-wracking though. I know it's a packed waiting room. You're talking to a person that you've never met before about this huge life decision, and you have a very short amount of time to do it. But it's important to take a breath, to reflect on all the work that you've done to get to this point. At this point, you've already put in months and months of research, and to just explain yourself very clearly. The United States government is a huge advocate. I mean, you can see both by the fact that we have somebody in faith who is dedicated to getting students to the United States, but we really welcome students from all over the world, so the visa officers are not there to to stop you from getting to the United States. We really are there
to assist,
to help
the
facilitate.
process. Like tentatively, what are some of the questions that one should expect? There's maybe 2 or 3 important ones.
So we're definitely going to ask how you chose this university. Why is Duke University so attractive to Celine? Why did she pick it? And we're not looking for you to just recite what you saw on the website. We really want to know personally, because I have a friend that's there and that's going to help me with my transition. Or they have a great engineering program that I'm really interested in. Or there's one faculty to every 8 students, and that's really important to me. So that's one question that we're going to ask. We're also going to ask how you chose this course of study and how, if you already have a course of study. I know some people enter with general studies and will change.
Students,
But what your future goals are down the line, where you see yourself. It's a hard question. I have no idea where I see myself in 10 and 20 years. But
you actually asked them where they see themselves in around 10 years?
Yeah, and why is this education going to benefit you? We're all human. We know that that's kind of an impossible question to answer. But what we're really looking for is for you to demonstrate that you have thought about this.
Yeah, true.
So it's a quick interview. You have to bring your passport and a photo and some documents. And the officer may or may not ask to see your transcripts, but it's good to have them there just in case.
Okay. Yeah. So, how long does it take to process?
Well, from start to finish, it really depends. It can be a pretty quick process. For student visas, they can't be issued any more than 120 days before you're set to depart for the United States. And in fact, you can't actually enter the United States until about 30 days before your courses start. But the application process can be pretty quick, and it's pretty simple too. So one thing that I did want to mention is that, you know, sometimes we do see students who have encountered advisors who maybe have led them astray, who see them as an opportunity to make a little money. It's not a complicated process. It's laid out on our website. So if anybody tells you, if you
To
pay
pay
me
anything?
if you pay me a little bit of money, I can guarantee that you'll get a
Faith
visa.
was sharing with me earlier that this whole process that you're talking about, it's completely free.
Yes.
There's no fee. There is nothing you pay for you to go through this process. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just, you know, quickly say the website again, in case somebody wants to understand like the basic step-by-step application of that.
Sure, it's KE, as in Kenya, ke.usembassy.gov.
Okay.
And you'll click on visas, and the steps are laid out very clearly. There are a few fees within our own system. There's an application fee of $160.
Okay.
And the service fee to your university is $200. But beyond that,
There's
there's
nothing else. Is there any circumstance that the visa can be withdrawn?
once you're issued, not
Even while you're there or anything?
well, I mean, if you're using your visa inappropriately, on student visas, you're not allowed to work in the United States. So, for
Oh, you
instance,
can't work.
So, for instance, if you have a side job, that's an instance of misusing your visa. So, in that instance, you might lose it. But the requirements of your visa, as you go through the process, will be made very clear to you. It won't be a mystery. So you'll know if you're doing something in the U.S. that you shouldn't be doing on your student
You
visa.
can imagine university students and the life and yeah, but if you use your visa in the right way, then there's no